Now, over 200 children excuse me, and adolescents are diagnosed with cancer each year. And while cancer care for children in Ireland includes first-class diagnosis and treatment, there's still a need for a clearer pathway of care for survivors as they move from childhood into adulthood.
And seeing a need for this after her own personal experience with her son's cancer treatment, our next guest, Patricia McColgan, decided to set up the charity CANCARE4LIVing to support cancer patients and their families, a cause which is praised by Aoife Moggan, who has been on her own cancer journey after discovering she had a rare tumour at just 12 years of age. And they both join us now. Ladies, you're both very welcome. And we've been talking just there before the interview about the sheer amount of surgeries that you have been through. I'm sure your son Rory also went through a lot of procedures, and it's at a time when you're so young and you're going through so much change. You've got puberty, you've got school, you've got college. Can you take us back to when you were 12? I mean, reading up about you, you were a very lively, you'd broken a lot of bones before you reached the age of 12.
Bones before I...
And you started to get a pain in your back?
Yeah, just a pain in my back. And so obviously at the start it wasn't anything much to worry about. And the GP thought it might be a pull muscle or something like that. But as time went on and it persisted, I suppose my parents, that kind of parental instinct kicked in, and they knew something wasn't up, especially when I didn't want to do sports and stuff like that. But it took a year. It took a year of going to a lot of different medical professionals and even holistic things, just trying everything to get to the bottom of it. Because it can be quite difficult if you don't have a rash or something tangible to show somebody. You know, it could, and you're dependent on how you describe your own pain. It can be difficult.
And yours was a very unusual tumour, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. It's called astrocytoma.
Which is what?
So it's a star-shaped tumour, and it was wrapped around my spinal cord, and that made it very difficult to remove. Obviously, they weren't able to remove it fully. So I had 3 big surgeries to resect it when I was 13, 14. And then following on from that, as a result of all those, so when we have treatment for cancer with kids these days, it's amazing that we've such a high standard in Ireland. But when you're treated, you know, things like chemotherapy, which essentially is a poison, and I had 8 weeks radiotherapy, that is radiation. That's actually the reason my voice has gone like this. And when all those kind of late effects kick in, it can be quite difficult then to...
So apart from going through all that you went through medically and missing out on all the things that you did in terms of your life, when the battle is over, and you've won, so to speak, you're left with the ravages of what it is you've gone through. And that in itself is a whole other set of things that you need to do.
Well, yeah, because the battle isn't over. And that's, I suppose, what we would like to get out there and get that message across, because for so many people it isn't. And then it's very difficult when you lose that, sometimes almost that title of a cancer patient. It's very hard to access services and the things that you need. And even, especially when you leave paediatric services, it's kind of like this safe cocoon of Crumlin where you see 3 doctors at once, and then you're kind of thrust out into the scary world of the adult world. And it's very hard to coordinate that and to get help. So that battle is still very much ongoing for me. And
I suppose that people would be saying to you, you won, be happy, be grateful.
And of course you are, but you know what your path is when you're fighting cancer, and now you're surviving cancer, but you still need support.
Yeah, I do, yeah. And definitely in the psychosocial side of things as well. You know, I've never been asked, I'm looking at 20 years, I suppose, in and out of hospital, and never once was asked, you know, how are you feeling about this, or anything like that. Now, thankfully, I have a really supportive family and friends, and, you know, that's been amazing. But not everyone has that, and I think it's really important that we have that focus on maybe the mental health side of things, and also helping people that have fought so hard, fought that battle, to help them get back into education and work and really important things to get back into
their life. Absolutely.
Doesn't matter how good your support systems are. There's no guidebook for how you replace a lost childhood, is there?
No. Well, I wouldn't consider it a lost childhood. I had some great times, even when I was sick. You know, it's funny how that happens. I have a great bunch of friends, like I said, and they'd come in, and we still have great laughs all over the hospitals in Dublin. We've had great crack. They used to like race me in there was like big arm, it was called a Buxton. It was like an armchair, but it was a wheelchair, and they used to like be racing me up and down in it and things like that. So it is difficult when you kind of mourn the loss of things like being able to run and jump and stuff like that, because I really, that's what I
And you were really
did.
sporty and everything. Patricia, what about you then? Your son at 14, Rory, had a cancer diagnosis. Is he fit and well now today?
He is. He's 6'3" and working away and enjoying his shell supporter for his sins. Yeah, he's well. But when you think about, he was 14 and he had mild headaches, and we went to the hospital, or the doctor, and the doctor suggested an MRI. But when he went to the hospital, they said, no, he didn't need it, it was vertigo. So we went to a clinic the next day, and he was in hospital in a couple of hours. So they gave him a diagnosis, and they worked out the treatment plan. And the team in Crumlin and in Luke's were fantastic. Treatment was second to none. But then when you're 18, basically it's thanks and good night. The paediatric system isn't available for you anymore. And it became very apparent to me at that stage that there was no service for survivors. And cure is not enough is an expression that's used. And it sounds, it's not being ungrateful, but really when you think about it, giving chemotherapy and radiation to, there could be a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, there can be consequences, and increasingly research, international research and European research shows that it is very wise to get ahead of this. So what we want to do, myself and my colleague Gary Owens, who's also a father of a person who had cancer when they were younger, Daniel, we met a lady called Dr. Julianne Byrne in the Boyne Research Institute, and she supported us and helped us set up CANCARE4LIVIng in 2014. So basically our purpose is to lobby for a proper nationwide service for survivors of childhood cancer, because at the moment they might not even have a summary of the treatment that they had. So they're not aware at what risks they might be facing. And they're trying to access these services on their own. For example, the other day, a couple of appointments came in for Rory, and I don't know who set them up. He doesn't know who set them up. I don't know who the results are going to. I don't know if they're talking to each other. So you don't know what you could be facing. You have to try and access that on your own steam. And then essentially each of the healthcare professionals are doing their best, but nobody's connecting the dots. And that's what we need. We need a service where survivors can go and where they're understood. And we need to basically make sure that the people who they will need know about them and look at them in context, like, for example, endocrinologists, cardiologists, and as Aoife said, the psychosocial aspect of it is very important.
Yeah, well, you know, the common thread in this is that the initial care is spectacular. Yeah. And no quibbles or complaints about that. And then when you've been, I won't say cured, right, but when that's been sorted and you're ready to go back out and face the world again, there's a whole other set of problems. And nobody has seems to have given any thought to that or joined up thinking to that.
We try and think of it as a story of success. Some people may not have side effects. That's very important to know, right? Some people may have some and some people may have many. But the point about it is that they're trying to navigate the system on their own. You know, they're trying to make their appointments on their own. They're trying to get their healthcare professionals to talk to each other. And they've already been through enough. They deserve a service to go to where they're understood. And really, we're CANCARE4LIVIng are part of a European organisation called PanCare. It's pancare.eu. And I suppose when it became apparent to Gary and I that this was the challenge in Ireland at the moment, we thought, oh, why isn't it here? And, you know, so on. And then when we joined PanCare, we realised it's really a European problem. And it's because 81% of our precious children survive. So therefore, this is a challenge of success is what we do. And what we would really love to see is Team Ireland, the healthcare professionals, the advocacy groups, the National Cancer Control Programme, and all of the vested interests come together and deliver a service. We know what's needed. We just need to make it happen now.
Especially when you've had it and then it's been sort of taken away as such, so you know exactly what's needed.
Exactly.
You're looking for people like the brilliant Aoife here to come forward and talk about their experience.
We are. We're having a roadshow. We started in Cork, as one does, and then last night Aoife and I were with some amazing people and Dr. Paul Dalton from St Vincent's Hospital in Galway. We had our roadshow, and on the 3rd of May next week we're in the Talbot Hotel in Carlow, and we would really like people to contact us. Our website is www.CANCARE4LIVING.ie. We want to hear from people, and we've started to hear from people because you see, we've no way of contacting them with data protection and so on. So we really I've gone on an awareness campaign to say to people, we're there, we want to hear from you, you're not alone, and we'll work on this together to make our voice heard.
Aoife, I'll leave the last word to you. Of all of the things that were there or weren't there, when the battle was won, so to speak, if you could have 5 minutes with Simon Harris, what would you say to him about, this is the one thing I want to have to happen for people like me when we fought the battle?
When we fought the battle, I suppose, like I said, I think the psychosocial aspect of things and looking after people's mental health, I think, is the biggest thing, or having somebody there, that support, and that somebody asks, you know, how are you doing? How are you dealing with this?
But it's just a given that you'll have somebody to support you through this and help you talk it through and come to terms with it.
And someone that isn't your family or your friends, because that can be very difficult. You know, I know personally you feel very guilty, especially when you're younger, that you've kind of thrown the family into turmoil with this illness. And it can be difficult. I think that's why journaling was so great, and I used to use journals to express myself or whatever.
But some people might not know about that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
It's a very, very good point.
To be able to have those services in place, because I think afterwards is when you need that.
Well, who knows? Maybe he's listening.
Yes.
I hope so.
Cheers. Thank you so very much indeed. We'll put all the details up on our Facebook page.
Thank you so much.
We'll take a break now. Join us for more on Ireland AM shortly.